permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Hear Fred shout.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, Fred!
Welcome to episode 471 of Concede, our own podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, October 31st, 2024 in the evening. Coming to you from Numbergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Bend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. As always, this week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Crisley Bear, May, and SSJ5 Goku. And by our patrons of the week, Gobin and Jolt C. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, in terms of Life and Ladder, I think we've basically all mostly just done the pre-release brawl. So this is kind of going to be that section, the pre-release brawl section. Apart from that, I got second-degree burns on my hand, so that was not fun. I have like a rubber hot water bottle thing that I fill up when it's cold. And I was filling it up, I guess, absent-mindedly, because then it was full. And then I was just pouring boiling water on my hand. And I was like, shoot, I have to like close this thing. So, because otherwise if I drop it, then I'm going to get this water all over the place. And then I turned off the spigot. I don't know how long I had just boiling water pouring on my hand, but
oh god,
did you not notice it when you first? You just didn't notice that you were boiling water on your hand?
So we have a samovar, right, which is it holds like many liters of water that you can heat up all at once, and so I had the spigot open and was filling this hot water bottle thing, and I forget, I don't know, I was listening to something, I was just stupidly being absent-minded, and then rather than, intently watching it and then turning the spigot off when it filled up, it just overfilled, and I was like, for whatever reason, my first thought was not like, I got to turn this thing off right away. It was, I have to close up this water bottle thing right away because otherwise I will drop it and it will spill everywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah. No, I wasn't playing anything. I might have been listening to a podcast or something. It was late at night, so that also wasn't great. But
I mean, because I can recommend some USB hand warmers if you want a safer way to keep your hands warm if it was because they were cold.
No, it's not. I mean, it's very large. It's a full cozy. Anyway, I think of it as like rather than putting hot coals in a pan and putting that under your mattress like they used to do. Anyway, so I'm not going to say this full thing, but I put a little quote from the end of a My Chemical Romance song called Blood because that's what has mainly been working. I tried a whole bunch of stuff during the brawl. Like I tried, and then it seemed like things kind of started to boil down to more limited decks. So there's the Pirate Demon Hunters, there's the Frost DKs, there's the Control DKs, right? Blood, Unholy, and there are the Warriors, the Mech Warriors. And Mech Warrior seems to me like it's kind of on top.
Yeah, it seems decent. I've run into a couple of them. I was surprised how effective they are. Yeah.
I think Storm Rage was at like 42 with a couple of things in play and died. Because I assume they were on 16 mana and did all the things, right? Had multiple recommend deckums and cubed the it's the 4/8 where it deals 8 to the board, right? So, yeah. But in general, my Blood Decay has been working very well for me. It's got starship pieces. Initially, I only had one of the Spellburst Epic starship piece. Then I picked up a second one. I notably don't have all the like discover stuff that I think a lot of people are doing. And I do have Ceaseless Expanse and 8 Hands from Beyond in signature, which is part of why I've been doing this over and over, because it just felt sort of meant to be. And so my runs with this deck are 6-0, 6-0, 6-1, and I think I'm at like a 3-1 start on another one.
Very well done.
Storm Rage got like a 6-1 or a 6-2. Nomad Farmer got a 6-2 with variations on my list depending on what cards they have. So it seems good. I think at least in this format where they don't get Reno'd away, starships are solid.
Yeah. I should note that Mech Warrior has new cards, so it's really just
yes, that's why
benefiting from the fact that there's not like Reno and Yogg in the meta, I think, and that's why that deck is doing well. Not so much because there's anything new that deck got, because they didn't get anything.
Yeah, and I don't know like where's the best place to talk about this. I mean, I guess sort of here, if this is the hey, we played the the Tavern Brawl section.
Yeah, like, I mean, it'll come up in both places, but this is kind of the Tavern Brawl section.
So I think they have a tricky line here, which is that people want to play the new cards and play against the new cards, and it can be frustrating to then play against a bunch of things not running any new cards. But the flip side of that, of course, is there are many people who are not getting bundles and are using this as a way to try and not exactly farm, because the rate isn't that good, but to like sort of be more efficient with their gold and get to, I guess, experience the new stuff, experience a new meta, experience a mini tournament mode.
Run away from Reno, Renethal, and Yogg.
Exactly. Right. And try decks that legitimately perhaps could not exist, certainly did not exist in regular standard because of the restrictions, but because they don't have many new cards, it's like, yeah, these things, Pirate Demon Hunter, the Frost Decay, and the Warrior, and there's so many warriors. It's
I'm running double Thrall's Gift for Hex.
Yeah.
Specifically for testing dummy. And, if you happen to run into aggro, you can do the Lightning Storm. If you run into some of the other slow decks, it's not that helpful. But after a run where I lost to 3 Mech Warriors in a row, I was like, you know what? We're just
we had
those
Thrall's
testing
Gift in that
dummies.
deck.
Yeah, I tried a different build, and then I put it back.
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with different builds.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I know that... obviously for Blizzard, what they most want to do is incentivize pre-orders without
forcing people
too much, right? Without forcing people, right? But so we don't know exactly how it moved the needle on that. But I think actually, it's always going to be, as long as you're allowed to play without new cards, it's like, which I don't see how you could possibly not make that the case. It's always going to be that the like initial thing, unless you made it like a theory crafting requirement, old stuff is refined even when it's without sets. Like Mech Warrior did exist as a deck. It's just only like Enzo from our Discord was playing it in standard. When like Reno exists. But like Mech Warrior was more or less refined. And so that was on the Vicious Syndicate list of decks to try. Whereas newer stuff, by definition, is not refined. But even after the first day, I mean, I'm still seeing a lot of Mech Warriors. But I'm also doing just as well with new stuff, and I'm seeing more new stuff. So I think, in my opinion, they struck a pretty good balance so that it's accessible to people, while it's also, it doesn't punish you really for playing new stuff, especially after the first day. And like that's always going to be the case on a first day.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a pretty flat reward structure. Like it's not like a heroic Tavern Brawl where you spent a ton of gold to get into this thing, so you need to get your money's worth.
The decks with entirely core set cards kind of faded away after the first day. That was a little bit like that. For the first day, there were definitely decks where there were just like, I saw more Baron Geddons played in the past day than I have in the past like year. But like played from a hand, by the way, not summoned, just played out of their deck.
Well, I mean, I think this shows we live in a bubble of really engaged players, mostly diamond and above, right? There are a lot of players like my husband who's no longer playing core cards, but he was for a while, who are new to this game, and they got a free entry to this brawl, and then everyone's being thrown together. Yeah. Like a lot of people who play this game are not like
there's
us.
A difference between like, you know, having some core cards in your deck that you wouldn't normally see and your deck entirely consisting of core cards, which is, I saw that more than once, right? Like where there was not a card from an expansion, and that's a little different. But
yeah,
and I guess
that makes me wonder if they're still in apprentice track, and if they are, like, I don't know whether you're allowed to do this while you're in apprentice track, but you probably shouldn't be if you are.
Or they're just a Battlegrounds player, right? And then, you know, it was there. I don't know what the motivation is there, but I guess my feeling is like, on the one hand, I think this is one of the best events they've ever done. However, I mean, it's not perfect, and I feel like I want this to be a little bit more like a Magic pre-release than it is, right? Where, because when a new Magic set comes out, they have like a sealed event where you get like 6 packs and you just play a sealed deck. And I know that this isn't going to be sealed, and like sealed deck with just the new expansion cards would probably be a disaster. But at the same time, it's like you want to be playing with and against the new stuff. And I don't know how they can tweak it to make that happen, or make this more like the way I see this event is less of a Tavern Brawl and more like, if you buy the deluxe version of Diablo 4, you get to play Diablo 4 for 3 days before everybody else does, right? And that's not unreasonable. It is not unreasonable if you've pre-ordered a bundle for you to get like early access to the set, right? And I understand that that's not equitable, but also that's how every game works now. Like every live service game, if you pre-order it, you'll get like a couple of days of early access.
Or multiple years for Baldur's Gate 3.
Right. And I guess there is a limit to that, because they also have to have queue times, right? So like, if they limit it too much, then you're waiting too long for a game and then nobody plays it. So there's definitely, like, I understand there's a balance there. And maybe it's a matter of like, they could restrict it more to not, you know, like even maybe taking out just a year's worth of cards is not enough. Maybe it's got to be like the set and the last set in core to kind of get some of this. I don't know. But I will say that I appreciated through this brawl how much different this meta is when you don't have Reno and Yogg and Titans in every single deck. Yeah. When there are fewer, because there are a lot in this past year, it's really made me appreciate how few generically powerful cards that they've made that could just go into any deck. There's really like Marin, and I guess Ceaseless Expanse now, but even that's got to be in a slower deck in order for you to ever actually be able to play it. But there aren't as many of those, right? And it really has made the decks feel different. Different from each other, as opposed to where you're playing into the same things again and again, even after having jammed these for like 2 days straight, right? I don't feel like, usually by this point in like a new standard meta, I'm already starting to feel the fatigue of playing against the same things over and over again. And even though I'm playing against the same classes, I don't feel like I'm playing against the same decks over and over again. So that's really been a win for this event. Yeah,
I don't know. I do kind of feel like I'm facing the same decks over and over again. I know there's not supposed to be any MMR element. It's just like, you know, wins based. Yeah. But I don't know. It sure has felt like there's maybe something, because...
Well, you got to stop winning your first couple games, right? Because if you lose the first couple games, then you get put into a very different bracket where you're going to see a lot more variety. Because I can tell you that from experience.
I did notice that with some of the other things I was trying. So maybe that's just it.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, as Wicked said, a lot of people who are more casual players of the game already got their brawl out of the way. A little bit like the heroic brawl.
They got in for their 2 free tickets and they're done, right?
Well, except depending on how many tickets they have, it took many many runs before
Well,
I started having to
that's
spend
what I mean.
gold.
The casual players are already out. We're not out
Yeah.
because we started with 30 tickets.
The casual players have been doing arena runs to spend those tickets to get packs.
I guess.
Or they haven't gotten that far on the track to get tons of tickets that they haven't spent for years. Yeah.
Aside from the 2 that you're getting from the event quest, that's still ongoing, right?
Right. So now I'm still on my tavern tickets, and I think my plan is to just not spend gold this expansion and just hoard it for maybe the Heroic Tavern Brawl or something, because I'm going to have all the packs I need.
I've been spending a bunch of gold on this thing because much as I gripe about facing the stuff, I mean, it has worked for me because I found a list that plays very well into those things. That's part of why I've been disincentivized away or whatever. I stopped playing some of the other stuff is because I do enjoy Blood Decay, and I don't know how good it'll be with Reno, the aforementioned Reno and Yogg and stuff, and playing Starships with Reborn is awesome. So
you do. I mean, and you are the kind of player who could probably expect to get 6 wins more often than not, and that's really you basically need to be getting at least 4 wins in order for this to be the same as if you were to buy the packs with gold. And you need to get 6 wins to be profiting on it, because I mean, in terms of packs from the new expansion, yes, you'll get packs from the other ones. You'll get like a common and a rare here and there. But like, if you really want to be getting more packs with this than you would be by buying gold, you have to hit the 6 wins on every run.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And again, that depends on where your collection's at. Because if a perils hack is not useless to you, then you only need 3. Right? So it depends on where you are in your collection. For the type of person who's listening to this show, probably you want at least 4 to break even.
Yes.
But, for my husband, the perils packs are actually more valuable to him. Because
he can use them. You go use them
because
right now.
Because we got him the pre-order, the standard pre-order. So he has more Great Dark Beyond cards than anything else right now. So people are in different situations, but I think it's also, you're just paying for the experience of it at a certain point also.
Yeah. And I do think 6-3, right, is much nicer format for that than the 12 before 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so punishing that you don't feel like if you just want to play it for the experience, unless you're being very judicious with your gold, like you can. And if you do really well, then you're actually being more efficient with your gold, but not so much more that I think you feel like you have to grind this or you're missing out. Like if you're a top player, you don't really want to play it that much. Even if you could get a little more out of your gold by playing it, I don't think it's a huge loss if you don't want to. And honestly, I think even if they made it so that it was like theory crafting and you had to play all 10 new cards, and too bad for you if you didn't have a pre-order, etc., it wouldn't be like theory crafting where people are trying a bunch of new stuff. It would settle. Every day one meta is like this. People are all playing new stuff, and they settle on the same one thing for the first 24 hours, and everyone gets really upset. It's just the way that early metas work, and by definition, this is an early meta. We're going to be seeing a lot of one deck. Especially, I think when it's like pay to enter, people are like, well, I want to, even though I just said it's not that much, it still is something. And so people are like, well, I'm going to play Mech Warrior because I see it's working for people. So I'm just going to.
Well, and like that has been me just in a different form, right? Where I ran out of my free entries after a certain point, all my experiments. And a couple of them, I honestly was just like, this is like not enjoyable into what I'm facing, and I like built this wrong or whatever. And so I just retired those. But yeah, I want to get my value now that I'm putting in 300 gold every time. So I'm playing this Blood Decay. I just feel I feel a little better about it personally, because I am still running a bunch of new cards in the form of the Starships and 8 hands and Ceaseless Expanse.
Yeah. Like I didn't get really very much. I mean, I got the Shaman Asteroid stuff, but when I opened was mostly demon stuff. So I just threw together this janky Wheel Warlock with the starship pieces, and it actually worked reasonably well. Like I got 5 wins with it because it turns out the Warlock starship is basically Reno, like old school Reno, because it's got the lifesteal starship piece and then the spell burst that it does its attack to 2 minions. So you just play a spell and you gain 26, and then you're back to full. And and then I had wheel for the Death Knights because I didn't care how much health they had. The game was going to end in 5 turns one way or the other. So, you can gain all the life you want. I don't really care. I don't need to hit your face. In fact, as a degenerate control main, I prefer not to have to hit your face in order to win the game. So that actually worked. I don't know that I would recommend that. I mean, that was something that I was enjoying just because I got a bunch of the demons and I really wanted to play Kill Jaden and I wanted to play Wheel again. And I also got a signature Ceaseless Expanse. So that's just going in every deck for the next 15 months. Like that doesn't matter. Pirate DH don't care. It's getting a Ceaseless Expanse. That's just happening. but yeah. So and then we played we had our co-op stream last night. We played the Asteroid Shaman and we got 6 wins with that. And that it feels like that's a little bit dicier now with all the Death Knights running around. But I did another run today and I still got another 5 wins with it. So it was fine.
Nice.
I've been doing well against Death Knights. What I found, and the reason I put the 2 hexes back in because I was experimenting with going a little bit more tempo and trying to get there faster. Of course I was. Well, and World 8 was talking about it in the Discord because of course he was. And
he's a bad influence on you. Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, so trying to make it, and I believe Pilot also in the Discord. So we were talking about that, but I just ran into a bunch of testing dummies I couldn't deal with. So
yeah,
I went back to a more controlling style, except without Murmur because I don't have Murmur. So kind of in the middle. I actually had someone spectating me right before the show. And twice I passed up Shutterblock and Incendious because I just had lethal. And they were like, boo, I wanted to see the Shutterblock and Incendious.
You're spectating the wrong host then, because that's just going to happen in all my games because I'm not going to be able to kill them otherwise.
Malted Magma really feels good in the deck when you have a little bit of spell damage. So I was thinking about putting zappers in actually, but right now I just have Thalnos and the 2 oracles. But Malted Magma still can, I just got lethal with that and some Turbulus buffed things that happened to be on the board. One game I got an Incendious down on 4 because you play the Parrot Sanctuary on 2, you activate it. You play something else on 3 that's not a battle cry. You activate the Parrot Sanctuary again on 4. Now your Incendious costs 4.
Yep.
And it has 10 health, and almost nobody can kill it at that point.
And you 2 were convincing me that I shouldn't be pressing that button on 2 every single time.
Well, there is an exception. This is an exception. I was like, should I press the button? Probably not. And then I top deck Incendious, and I'm like, yep, we're pressing the button every time. And I had a Fairy Tale Forest to play on 3. It was perfect curve. They didn't clear it until 6 or something. So I was like, it doesn't matter that I didn't shutter block it. I just triangulate that, and each one does 5 damage. So
because the triangulated ones keep the buff, right? They're exact copies. So
yeah, I've been having. So I ended up doing. You'll be proud of me. A little bit more of a control version, but still not quite Murmur full.
I don't believe that.
But I put Baking Soda Volcano in, and I think that'll be helpful. I have, of course, the Decors and Hagatha. I'm playing it as aggressively as possible, but the cards in it are much more take your time. And there was definitely a game that I lost because I didn't if I needed to make sure I had all the damage, and I could if I was patient. Other times, though, I think you do. The tracker is finally updated on Mac, and this helped enormously.
Oh yeah, I
then
noticed
you
that
know
today
if
too.
you have damage. Right?
Yes.
Before it was very much guesswork. And I think this is the type of deck where you often have lethal a turn or 2 before it's obvious to you that you have lethal. So, or it's worth taking the chance. And that's it. I think it's a difficult deck, but it's a really fun deck, and I'm excited to play more of it. I also tried the Draenei Warrior, which definitely suffers from not having last year's cards.
Yeah.
Even though it's mostly Great Dark Beyond cards, I just happened to open all of it. But turns out it really hates go wide decks, and this was day one, and everyone was playing Pirate Demon Hunter, and it really hates taunts. Had no way, at least in the build that I had, to deal with taunts. Especially like, I had one game where like they were down to really low health. I'm like, yes, I have a huge swing next turn, and then they played double Scrugnook spell, the 2/5s with taunt. So they had 4 2/5s with taunt. And I could have just left at that point. I didn't.
But
it took me a while to
adorable.
lose. They are so cute. They are so cute. And they completely soloed me. So we'll have to see. And then I tried a hunter deck from Homie that I just completely flailed at. I mean, I did really horribly. I think it might be in part because I'm going to blame it on the fact that I was really hungry and I had forgotten to eat lunch. But also, I'm sure I misplayed it. Homie got like 6-0 with it. I just did not quite do that, but I do think Gorm on the eggs is really powerful. That felt very powerful.
Sure.
And Niall is good. Those were not why I lost. Then I got some food and the tracker got updated, and then we were a quick 4-0. Haven't finished the run yet with Asteroid Shaman again.
See, you should have been playing Warrior instead, because then all you could eat would have reminded you that you needed to.
I actually texted my husband and I was like, would it be unconscionable of me to have half of the pizza in the freezer that's like a special pizza for him? And I was like, and I'll save half of it for you, but I really need food and there's nothing in the house. The early coin concede to him to being like, yes, you can have the pizza in the fridge.
Well, we have a lot of news and we have more cards to talk about. So we should get into that and just keep talking about what we're talking about and then talk about that some more, because that's what we do on a podcast.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so as you may have already surmised, we got patch 31.0 this week, which is the patch for the expansion. So obviously, Great Dark Beyond is now live. The Tavern Brawl event's live. You already know from listening to us for the past 28 minutes and 6 seconds that you can play the Tavern Brawl, and by the time you're listening to this, Tavern Brawl may be over. But yeah, that's still there. We've talked all about that last week and for the past half hour, so we won't go too much into that. If you are listening to this live, there you can earn more packs by just watching Twitch streams with drops between now and November 2nd at 10 a.m., which is when that's Sunday. That's not when the expansion drops. That's Sunday at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Pacific, or 1 p.m. Eastern. I believe daylight savings is this weekend too, so take that into account if you are not in the US and you're not changing your clocks. So because we're in that weird spot where we haven't changed our clocks, but Europe has, I believe. So so just be aware of that if you're doing your planning. There are creator deck recipes in the client, including friend of the show Swebe, which we're very happy to see her Fire Mage. So she has good taste in decks as well. And also the new and returning loner decks will update with the 31.4 patch and include cards from this expansion, just like they did in the last patch. So that may be a pattern. At least that's going to be the way that it is. 30.4 is the mini set. So when the mini set comes around, the loner decks for new and returning players will update with cards from the main set. The quests changes that we talked about, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before because everything's running together at this point, but that is live. The weekly quests are easier to complete, but gain less XP. They're reverting to the versions before patch 29.2 when they made all these changes to the weekly quests. The Tavern Brawls now, after this one, which is obviously special, the Tavern Brawls going forward will grant the latest expansion packs instead of standard packs. And the new reward track and Tavern Pass has been upgraded with more packs from the new expansion. We'll when we talk about the rewards track, we'll talk about that a little bit more too. The card updates that we mentioned either last week or the week before to the demonic dynamics, which is going from 3 mana to 2 mana, and over planner to not actually discover the cards, instead just looks at them so that you're not getting those cards from Niall. Because Niall says you get a copy of anything you discover. It's never done that, apparently. It's just a text change.
Not Niall, the 1/2.
Oh, the 1/2, yeah. The 1/2 in Hunter. That gives you a copy of each card you've discovered.
Rangari or something.
Yeah. This is actually a text only change. It never actually discovered, but it's just they're clarifying that so you don't think that you're going to get the cards when you're not going to. There's a Warcraft anniversary in-game event that is starting on November 12th, which is that's November. That's a week after the expansion launches. So the Tuesday after the expansion launches until December 3rd, there's going to be event quests to earn XP. There's going to be a new gift card, Champions of Azeroth. It's a 4-mana epic spell. I guess, I mean, rarity doesn't really matter because you can't get any other way, but it's a 4-mana spell. Choose Alliance or Horde, get 2 of their legendary champions and reduce their costs by 2. So you'll be able to get 2 copies of the regular one for the first stage of this event quest, and then 2 copies of the 2 golden copies of that card. For the second stage, you'll get a Warcraft logo card back, and then a Hogger Warrior hero skin at the very end. So that, again, this will be on par with the same kind of difficulty of the last couple event quests because it is going for a month. So, or most of the month. So, expect that, but if you're not interested in any of that, you don't need to worry about it, but that's something that's there. Arena is back to solo heroes with this expansion. And so there's no more dual class Arena, and the sets are Great Dark Beyond, Perils in Paradise, Showdown in the Badlands, Festival of Legends, Caverns of Time, and Scholomance Academy. So lots of dragons and lots of demons. So, enjoy that, Arena enjoyers. And then not a ton of bug fixes, but a few fairly significant ones. One is a rules update for Constructed, which is that cards that relate to Cthulhu, like those that buff Cthulhu, or Galakrond, like those that invoke Galakrond, will now only be transformed into, discovered, or randomly generated if a card from that grouping is in your starting deck. So if you are not playing Cthulhu, you will not be able to get at all a Disciple of Cthulhu, for example. You need to actually do that, which makes sense, right? Because those are just kind of, if you didn't build your deck around those, that's just kind of bad. So
yeah. Now I need to do that so that my Amanthul, speaking of Titans that we're going to be playing with again shortly, doesn't discover me start of game effects that I can't use anymore.
Yeah, that would be nice too. But we'll see that. We'll so that's it. That's more going to be a wild thing and maybe an arena thing, but just be aware of that if you are playing those modes. They fixed a bug where playing the Horseman's Head from hand would draw you a card. So if you somehow, like, you had like a Sir Finley that swapped your hand with your deck and you got the Horseman's Head in your hand and then you played it, it would draw a card for you because it's cast when drawn. So it will no longer do that anymore. And they say this fix would have been written as a flavorful rhyme if we were cleverer or had some more time. So, and then I've run into this a couple times. They fixed a bug where if you conceded during Mista Vista's Scenic Vista effect, it would punish you by having the noise from the Scenic Vista never end and persist into your next game. So they fixed that, thankfully, because that is the only way you fix that is basically by, you don't figure that out that that's what's happening until you've already queued into the next game, and then you just have to sit there or concede, and neither one of those is great. So and then there is going to be music from the Taverns Volume 2 with another 50 tracks that will be coming in a later patch. I'm not sure why that's tied to a later patch because I thought that was just on streaming services, but whatever that means, that's going to be there. Of course, with the new patch, we have known issues, and there are some significant ones that you're going to want to be aware of. So the first one is that, if you have not yet done the Tavern Brawl and you're worried because it says it costs you 2 tickets, you don't have any tickets, the first one's free. It's just the text doesn't indicate it. So most people, I think, have figured that out by now, but in case you haven't, then that's something that you should just know and just go ahead and do it and get your free packs. Orbital cards from the new set don't trigger their adjacent card plate effects when the adjacent card replaces itself, like the Perils and Paradise Drink spells. So that's again something to be aware of. You don't want to play your drink right before an orbital card because it's not going to pick it up. Titan minions don't work with Exarch Akamas effect. Exarch Akamas says after you've attacked with this, then your creatures can attack again. I didn't think that was intended. I'm surprised that that's a bug and not a feature, but I guess that's good to know that when they fix that, you'll be able to trigger your Yogg twice. So, do with that what you will.
I mean, that was always true if you managed to give a Titan Wind Fury, so.
Yeah, but it's weird because it's not Wind Fury, but yeah, anyway. It is what it is. So that's something that does not work now, but they will fix that. So that will be something you'll be able to do. So be aware of that. Ace Wayfinder's effect. Ace Wayfinder is the one that gets 2 bonus effects and then grants them the next Draenei you play. It does not apply to the next Draenei if it's triggered by Velen. Ace Wayfinder didn't seem like a card very many people were playing, so that might not be that relevant outside of Arena where you have to high roll the Velen as your first pick. But again, if you're doing that, just be aware that's not going to work. Gravity Lapse doesn't work as intended with Astral Automatons. Gravity Lapse sets the the attack and health of all minions on board to the lowest of the 2. I'm assuming that it sets them to 1 and then applies the buff after, or it's either it sets them both to 1 because it starts to 1/2 and then the buff is an aura, or it just sets them to whatever the lower of the current stats are. And I'm not sure which one is actually intended. But whatever it is, it's not doing that. So Doom Maiden's effect will return cast when drawn cards at the end of the turn after they've been cast. So Doom Maiden is the one that will draw a card from your opponent. And then if you play it this turn, if you don't play it this turn, it gives it back to them. But cast when drawn just plays. So it's still giving it back to them. So that's a bug. And then the next 2 I have been affected by personally in the same game. So they've banned Druid of the Claw and Raven Idol because due to a bug. The bug, at least in my experience, is that it was causing disconnects. So I played a game in my first Tavern Brawl where somebody played a Druid of the Claw and then immediately disconnected. I could see it looked like they were basically trying to play cards and not actually playing them. And after I figured it out, then I said, okay, I need to quit out and then go back in because I've disconnected. And which triggered the second bug, which is that if you quit out and disconnect, while that's happening, if you quit out the normal way, it just concedes the game for you.
What?
So I went into the menu and I quit like a gentleman, and I came back, and then it didn't reconnect me to the game, and it said that I had lost a game in my Tavern Brawl. So if you if you do need to close the client mid-game because you've disconnected, you want to Alt F4, right-click and choose quit, or if you're on mobile, you want to kill it for multitasking. You don't want to actually go into the menu and quit because that will end up conceding.
If you're on Mac, it's Command Q. Do the keyboard warrior way, and they will fix it as soon as possible, but you won't concede if you quit it a way other than the normal way.
This, as I understand it, this is slated for an upcoming hotfix, but just do be aware of that because that is a big one. And I was, especially because it was in the middle of a brawl, I was incredibly displeased. So, so that's that. We did get the rewards track information. We're not going to go through all of this stuff because there's a lot to talk about, but the real important thing is just like where we're getting the additional packs on the reward pass. So there are going to be 5 more that are going to be added to the free track. And those are all going to be between levels 2 and 17. The Exodar is level 1. That's the free legendary that gets granted to everyone, which is why it's not available for the Brawl because you can't open it yet. And you can't open it from a pack. So
I think that's a really cool legendary to give everyone for free because it's one we know we're going to see a bunch of. It's a big set piece for the big mechanic. So
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
that's
very
a cool
possible
choice.
that the starships would have been overpowered in the brawl if that was something you could open in packs. So I think that's probably okay, even though the starships are a little bit less powerful, but Exodar with them might have pushed over the line too much. But anyway, so you're getting 3 packs in the first 5 levels. They're adding a pack at level 2, level 7, level 11, level 13, level 14, and level 17. That's all before you get the random legendary. That's, those are going to be in place at the 50 gold. So you're effectively getting more packs than you would. You're getting 500 gold worth of packs as opposed to 250 gold, which is, if you want the packs from the new expansion, which I understand not everybody does, we're not going to go into that again, then that's going to be better for you. And then they're also adding levels 6, 7, 8, and 9 on the Tavern Pass are also going to grant you packs. So on day 1 of the expansion, typically if you're saving your quests, the general advice is to clear out your quest log by Saturday night, and then don't clear any quests on Sunday or Monday. That what happens is then you go into Tuesday with 3 daily quests and 3 weekly quests. And then if you're clearing all those the day of expansion, I've never, especially if I'm buying the Tavern Pass, I've never not gotten to level 20 by the end of my 3-hour stream. So you'll have 9 more packs on top of whatever else you've been opening by that point. And then there's a lot more information about all the portraits and everything too. And
the really important news about the portraits is that Astral Talanji is not our only priest portrait. There's also Medic Elise.
Yes.
Is a priest
Thank
portrait.
Goodness.
Hunter, unfortunately, I believe, did not get any portraits, so Sidisi is sad.
They got a cool legendary. They don't need portraits.
They did. But yeah, so we don't have to be sad about Talanji because we get an Elise.
Because Priest did not get a cool legendary, so Priest is getting the consolation prize of a cool portrait. And then a Talanji. So. Yeah, I'm not bitter. Anyway. And there is also the legendary collector achievement, which is generally getting all 135 cards will get you a signature ethereal oracle and a signature quasar. So if you are a space rock enjoyer or a degenerate rogue player, you will want to be doing that. And they also have information about the coins and everything else. So that's that. We're not going to go through everything, but you can go. It's linked in the show notes, assuming I remember to link it properly this time, as opposed to what I've done the last 2 weeks. And then you'll be able to see that. There also are a couple of interviews that they've been doing, that various media outlets have been doing with the development team. There's a tweet from Ben Hartstone with a link to an interview with Leo, aka Minty Fresh, and Luke, who's one of the VFX artists, about the expansion and the VFX that went around it and how they got there and everything else. So go check that out. It's translated from either Chinese or Japanese. I'm not sure which. I think that's Japanese. You can go read that. That's why I'm referring you to Ben's tweet, because it's translated into English. And there's also a video that the Hearthstone team put up around the concept art and how the effects were done, if you are interested in such things. Also, because this is October 31st, the final day of the first season in China, the first full season is just completed, and China ended with 460,000 legend players.
At least. And
Donkey's saying it seems like it's closer to 465,000 based on from what he's seeing on his site in a reply to that tweet. So for reference, just to look at the other, I'll look at Europe, because Europe is usually the one that has the most out of the other three when bots aren't running amok. Europe has 25,000 legend players. So they have 20 times as many legend players as the next biggest region, which is absurd.
Wow. And you have to play a lot of games, and people didn't necessarily even have the whole month. I mean, that's a lot of games to get yourself up to legend.
Yeah.
So that's that. If you were wondering how important China was, pretty important. A lot of players. But you know what else is important? Cards from Outer Space.
All right, so we are going to do our card superlatives. Obviously, we've talked more about these cards in some ways than we would have normally before an expansion because of the earlier theory crafting, and then we have the pre-release brawl, but we still wanted, now that we've had an opportunity to see how these cards play a little bit more, even though very much not the actual standard meta that we're going to get.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Which I do think is a good thing. We don't want the actual standard meta to be, quote, solved, not that it ever really is solved that quickly, before launch. So things are still going to change, but we have somewhat different opinions, I think, than we had when we first talked about the cards. And at least about some of them we have the same opinion. And we wanted to do our usual superlatives. So as usual, we're going to be doing card you can't wait to play with, or play more with in this case, card you're scared of, card you want to be good but isn't, card you think is over or underrated. We all did underrated again. And card you don't understand. So starting with card you can't wait to play more with, I put Triangulate. I talked a lot about Asteroid Shaman at the top of the show. Yeah. I don't know why this deck appeals to me so much when it's different than my usual style of deck, because it does kill you. Even when it's playing the more control game, it very much wants to find the earliest place to lethal, and it wants to deal a ton of damage. And I did used to be a control player once upon a time. I'm just reconnecting to my roots. So I'm excited about it for Asteroid Shaman, which doesn't even, I'm not sure exactly what that build's going to be. I don't even know whether we necessarily run Murmur. I opened Nobundu, so I did a run with him, but I think he's really more of a Nebula big spell shaman card, probably. Yeah. I'm not sure. It's like he has a little bit of anti-synergy with Hagatha, and I think Hagatha is better.
Definitely think Hagatha is better. For me, it's like a Murmur kind of takes that slot away, because sometimes you need Murmur to play Ceaseless Expanse earlier. Nobundu always felt like nice when I could survive playing him, but sometimes that's a tall order, just because flexibly you can get extra Frosty Decor if you need the survivability, or similarly Baking Soda Volcano, or if you just want more asteroids, you can do it on the Asteroid Swarm.
When it works, it's very nice, but it can be, you do have to survive getting, it's not a battle cry. You have to survive playing the 6/4 that does nothing immediately, having him die, and then you have to not have to play, like, that has to be the next spell that you play. I did run into one awkward issue where I really needed to play like a Malted Magma or something, or a Thrall's Gift, I can't remember, and I had to do like gymnastics to not do that. I think I ended up playing the big spell, even though it didn't really quite, the ordering was wrong, because I could get away with it, and I wanted that to be what was in the location that Nobundu summons. But so I'm not sure about that. He might go in. What I haven't tried at all is the Nebula deck. I'm a little afraid of that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I also want to try it. So I kind of put Triangulate to encompass all of that, but mostly the Asteroid / Incendious Shaman.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like, it's actually kind of solidifying what I like about this brawl, because like I'm thinking about it and like, oh yeah, well when it's in the standard meta, well, we're going to have to put in 2 Miracle Salesmen so we have more draw. Then we're going to have to put in Golganeth, and we're probably going to have to put in Yogg, right? And those are just like going in every shaman deck. And it's like, we have so many card slots that are just taken up by these generically good cards, right? That it felt like we didn't have those. There was like a lot more room for actually building a synergistic deck, which is kind of cool. So,
although honestly, like the one I put in theory crafting, I felt pretty good about it with just Golganeth as the additional thing.
Yeah.
From the older cards.
Your survivability a lot, I think. But I'm excited for the Gaslight Gatekeepers, because I actually think that's a lot better than Malygos. I think you actually draw a lot more cards often because I usually am sitting there with a really full hand.
Yeah, our hand's usually full in that deck too. Yeah.
Like if your hand is empty, then Malagos is better. But if you have a pretty full hand, which has almost always been the case for me, then I think Gaslight Gatekeeper is better.
Yeah, because Malagos is only going to draw you until your hand's full. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It actually benefits from being shutter locked because
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like the Malagos just draws till your hand's full anyway. And it costs 4 mana instead of 9. Just small detail. So I'm excited to have Gaslight Gatekeeper back, but Malagos has filled it in a pinch in the Brawl. It's just a really fun deck. It's got a lot of tricky decision making, but feels like things are winnable. And I'm excited to see how it gets refined too, because I'm not, I like the build that I have, but I'm not at all going to say this is the best build. This is what will be the build. It's never quite like that.
Yeah. And sometimes you just, you just send it and then you hope that enough of the asteroids go face and,
Sometimes you just put your heart of the cards, or you just be like, all right, I need my Oracle to get enough asteroids in a row. We did have a game like that on stream yesterday.
Yeah.
Where it just like happened. We had one where it was just going all against us and we just could never, we drew them all in a row when we didn't want them because we didn't have the spell damage out. And then we never drew them when we did have the spell damage out. Luckily, we had a game where our opponent was a weapon rogue. The only weapon rogue I've seen. They had a 9 attack weapon. We had 8 health and no taunts. We were on 2 losses. They are sitting there and not attacking. And Wicked said, I am petty enough. I am not going to concede. I'm going to waste this rogue's time.
That is not paraphrasing. Those are my exact words.
And was ranting a little bit about rogues, and Edel was like, well, I don't do that. And Wicked's like, well, this is, you're the exception, just like I'm the exception about priests emoting all the time. And then they're still not attacking. I said, wouldn't it be really funny if they disconnected? And then they disconnected. My theory is that we had just done like a Hail Mary. If we happen to draw every asteroid in our deck in a row, we might kill them.
And they were almost dead.
Yeah. It was close.
It was close. I don't think they stuck around to find out that they had lived, is what happened. They just like quit the client or something.
Yeah. Again, the advice in that scenario is you don't concede. You go to the kitchen, you get a snack, you come back and you see if the game end screen is on or not. And then if not, then you play. Yeah.
Always make a combo deck, finish their combo.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're getting comboed, go get some combos and then and then wait for their turn to finish.
That made me I was relieved because we didn't have that many wins yet, and I had like pushed playing this deck, but it wasn't my account. It was Wicked's account.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to have trouble getting the cards. It's okay. You don't need to worry about it.
Anyway, Edel, what did you pick as card you can't wait to play more with?
So initially I had put, 8 Hands from Beyond here, or could very easily have put the Airlock Breach. But I am playing a bunch of that now, and I don't know if it's going to be like a better hang once the real expansion drops. So I decided to put something that will be better once we can play it with the expansion cards and Titans cards, which is Saroon, the mage elemental legendary. Because I tried making a Saroon deck for the Brawl, and it was okay, but tricky to build because of one very important card that we could not run, which is Magma Surger or something Surger.
Overflow Surger?
Overflow Surger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's that, and also the one that draws you cards for how many elementals you played the prior turn. It's not as critical, but that's also pretty important.
Yeah, I missed Unchained Guardian less because Burn Down or whatever, the draw 3 fire spell, is right there.
Yeah.
And like fine. But the Surger is really important because it can give you just those explosives like, oh, we top decked the Surger with spell damage. Guess I win now. Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you do have to cobble together a bunch of cheap things to try and get a bunch of spell damage. Like I was running a single copy of the Amalgam that like retains buffs and shuffles back in. so that I could always know that I would at least have something that would be in the deck to get the fire spell damage.
I watched a game where that was actually necessary. Yeah.
But yeah, with some of the older stuff, you can have a higher density of elementals. I think, there's also the 2-drop where if you played a 1-drop right before, it has +1/+1 in Rush. That's from last year. So even though they've been pushing a bunch of elementals, there are a lot of elementals. Missing some of those ones from last year did make it a little bit trickier to do in the Brawl. And so I'm excited to try sort of the full deal when actual launch happens, because I didn't do enough of it during theory crafting, but it was super cool, and I definitely like the build where it's like you tour into Paladin just for the Grill Master, so you can find Sarun, because it's that important. It's like I wouldn't even run the Lamplighters, right? Just because it's much more about killing them with the fire damage. So yeah, and that's a lot of fun. And even if you don't run Supernova, it's like decent odds that one of the Blasteroids will get you Supernova. So
yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's this kind of Sarun deck we're talking about is definitely a little different than the play elementals and also you have Sarun, which also could be good.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I was definitely bummed because I opened this in my packs. I'm like, oh, cool, I can play fire elementals. And then I tried to build it and I'm like, oh, they're all not legal in this brawl. So like, maybe I'm not doing that because I'm not smart enough to figure out how to make this functional. Then I just went and played Demonins instead, which was fine.
And speaking of things that you've been playing, Wicked, what can you not wait to play?
Well, this should be no surprise for anyone who's listened to this show for any amount of time, but and it has nothing to do with the fact that the signature is one of the cards that I opened, though it doesn't hurt. But the Ceaseless Expanse, I love this card so much. It is online pretty much when I expected it would be, which is generally turn like 10 through 12, depending on what you're playing against. Like if you're playing against a Death Knight, or you are a Death Knight, it'll probably be sooner. You're playing against something that's like in a control mirror, it might take a little bit longer, but like this gets down to 0 relatively regularly. And being able to blow up the board, drop a 15/15, and then start your turn is pretty good. And that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. But it doesn't feel like when Yogg discounted itself based on spells, where it was the kind of thing that you could force and then build the deck around that. Like it doesn't feel like you can do that with the Ceaseless Expanse, which is good because the cost is so high, and it's just like you can't really make yourself play things more and draw more than you already want to. And it's also both players. So it feels like a fairer version of original Yogg, but also it feels so good to cast it. Just as the degenerate control player, just like, okay, blow up your board, summon a 15/15, and then I'm going to start doing things. And oh, by the way, there's still a 15/15 that you have to deal with on top of whatever else you were planning to do to rebuild.
Yep.
And sometimes it's 16/16 because you played Turbulus.
Yeah, can confirm the swing turns are so insane with that card.
There's definitely going to be the Ceaseless Expanse chicken, because if yours costs 0 and they have 1, theirs costs 0. So who plays it first, If you have Amonthul out, then you they play Ceaseless Expanse first, you put Amonthul, you steal their Ceaseless Expanse. Now you have 2.
You mean Yogg?
Well, no,
you can make a copy of it, I guess. No,
Puppet
you can't make
Theater.
a copy.
Puppet Theater is what I'm thinking of.
Oh my god, Puppet Theater.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Yeah, people are going to be extra mad about that card. Honestly,
it's gonna be a 1/1, so it won't be as good, but it's still gonna blow up the board for 0.
For 0, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Breakdance?
Stop it. Stop ruining my fun.
Hey,
You're
you
not here
mentioned
for that.
Puppet Theater. I mentioned Breakdance.
I didn't mention Puppet Theater. Magesa mentioned Puppet Theater, then you chose to commit violence against me.
I'm sorry for starting it. All right. Well, cards that you are scared of. Wicked, what did you pick as card that you're scared of besides Breakdance, which is not a new expansion card?
since I picked what I felt was the most obvious one for card I'm excited about, and there are two very obvious choices that you both have picked for this category, I decided to go a little bit further afield and say Exarch Niall, because it hasn't really done crimes yet, but I'm expecting it's going to. That's the 3 mana 3/4 with Battlecry, replace your hero power with tracking. There are enough slowish hunter decks that I can expect this being incredibly disgusting. Especially with all the discover synergy that Hunter's getting, just being able to, like, I'm thinking of like an egg hunter, right? Where they can just discover more copies of those things and discover, I don't know what they're going to do. Sidisi's already cooking things up that are going to make me sad, but it feels like this is a very powerful set that maybe wasn't really seeing it in theory crafting, or, because it didn't really get there in theory crafting, but either with Reno, right? Or in a meta where things are slowing down a little bit more and you can get more value out of that hero power, it feels like there's a lot of power there, and just being able to choose what you're going to draw every turn, even if it's from a limited pool.
The main worry that I would have is that it would become just like too much of a mulligan outlier. I think it's a really powerful card, but it's never going to be like the card that you lost to, except for maybe like the Scrugnuck 2/5 taunts are kind of insane. I just don't know exactly what our slower hunter shell is, but I'm sure Sidisi and like Ron Mexico and other hunter enthusiasts are going to figure it out. And she is very strong.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is certainly setting up your big Voltron starship, and then on 9 you launch and Yodeler and they die.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with the deck I was playing is that it didn't have Yodeler in it. Yeah, because that is a lot of damage.
And if you're already playing eggs, then you already got Yodeler. So,
and Gorm felt very good.
Hat at one point, and this was in the Brawl format, right? So again, no Yodeler, but cubed the like Death Rattle deal damage equal to its power thing. So to like summon more of those, and the more you have in that starship, right? It has all of the Death Rattles stacking up. So I think there's a Jordan clip from the theory crafting of someone with the Yodeler doing that on the starship, and it just like fires all these beams and they die.
Yes, cube on the biopod is actually really the like 4-head, 5-head chess move, because it like gets you more, even though you're like, well, the biopod's not very big, like, well, but it's making your starship enormous. Yeah. And it's making your starship fire more times, most importantly. So
you don't care about the body, you care about the fact that it died. Yeah.
You're just letting it die more times.
Yeah.
We can't give it reborn in Hunter, so we'll do this instead.
I am curious if there will be a straight starship Death Knight in addition to Hunter. Like Hunter, it kills them right away, but the Death Knight one, you summon a bunch of 10 drops.
Yeah. When we'll have to see, because we don't have the Exodar in the Brawl, right? Which is also probably holding the Hunter down too. So I think it's going to be a very different scenario when we can have the Exodar available, and then you can actually like get more of those, right?
Yeah, right now the Hunter only gets one shot at it, or any starship deck can't get its pieces back. So, and the Death Knight starship also is just like an endless amount of armor. It's just it's so much armor, especially if you got like Reborn on any of those pieces.
Well, and it's like that armor piece is neutral. It's a lot of armor for any of the starship decks. It's just that the Death Knight one has your spell burst trigger Death Rattle, right? And so you get all the armor gain, all the summons. Just really, really sweet deal.
All right. Well, what did you pick as card that you are scared of, Edel? We haven't seen this in the Brawl, but I'm sure we're going to see it on the 5th.
So Clark did manage to, because of course it was Clark, pull off I think 6 wins, maybe 6-2 run with Quasar, Rogue.
Of course he did.
I don't know how he managed that with the limited card pool, but it sure does seem like it's going to make some waves day one, because there are people for whom this is absolutely the type of deck they want to play and learn how to play and get really good at it. and it's just gonna be a matter of are there enough aggro decks to hold it down, because it is very much a get the location set up, turn 6, play Quasar, and possibly win that turn, depending on your setup with the draw location and other things. What the form of the deck is, there's definitely like routes you can go with combo cards where you make a big board and rely on that. There's things where you are bouncing and replaying the 2-drop neutral that puts asteroids in the deck, and then use the Oracle to draw them after clearing the opponent's board. And it's like you can't get them as high damage or as many as the Shaman, but because you're doing everything in one turn,
and you have Shadow Step,
right? And you have Shadow Step, and you're drawing your whole deck.
And it's a 2-mana minion, so you're not paying any mana to replay it after you Shadow Step it, because Shadow Step ruins everything.
And also Quasar, yeah.
The way that the Quasar decks are built is such that if you are fast enough, you can go off the turn you play Quasar, because the only thing that costs mana is the other Quasar.
Yeah. And you can do that as early as turn 4 with prep, because Knick Knack Shack costs 3. So they could go Knick Knack Shack 3, turn 4, prep Quasar, and then you're off to the races. Yeah.
Like I feel like there's, I guess anything, if you have like Discovers, then it would cost mana. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the builds specifically, it's like, okay, everything is going to cost 3 or less so that it's just free afterwards. And that just means you are limited only by APM and draw order.
And your connection to the server.
Yeah,
my Wi-Fi is sometimes fast enough for that, and sometimes it doesn't like me, and it isn't. So, not that it's really my type of deck anyway. But
yeah, this doesn't sound like a very Australia-friendly deck.
Yeah, I'm like I should be close enough, but anyway. It's my end. It's not their end.
You're practically like living next to the server. I don't understand how you're having issues, but
Yeah, no, it's client side. It's not server side issues. Well, the card that I am afraid of is Airlock Breach, which Edel almost put as card she can't wait to play more with. Just Blood Decay in general, mostly because if Wicked is on record for hating Thief Rogues and Rogues in general, Edel is on record for hating Ramp Druids. I really don't like Blood Decay. If you are a Blood Decay player,
sorry,
like Edel, it's okay. Everyone has the style of deck that they really like playing. I just, because of the types of decks that I play, it can be pretty miserable. I mean, like,
I don't understand why you would be bothered by a deck gaining 10 max health and then making 2/5/5 taunts. That's just that's something that your kinds of decks just deal with very well, typically.
I mean, my bad if I didn't kill them on 5.
Yeah, just get them.
It really is so funny to me that it's like, okay, so there's Vampiric Blood. That can't be discovered because it's triple blood. What if we, okay, well, it doesn't draw a card, but we add 4 mana, same number of corpses, and we'll give them 2 5/5 taunts. And because it's not triple runes, this thing is discoverable. And I'm like,
you would pay 6 mana for 2 5/5 taunts even without the health. Like you just would, right? Like we paid like 4 mana and having a body on board for backroom bouncer, right? The frog that turns another thing into a 4/5. And this is one more attack.
And that's a good card.
And you just get to get them. You don't have to give up a creature, a minion for that, right? So like we would like it would be like slightly below rate probably, but still like 6 mana for 2 5/5 taunts, you just pay that. And then, oh, by the way, I get to gain 10 max health. like not just heal 10, gain 10 health. Like what?
Yep.
Like, is it my birthday? Like what is happening?
Yeah, it's it's an astonishing amount of value. And I mean, I remember the period of DK launch where there were all these discovers because you would try and discover the triple rune cards. And very specifically, try and discover as many Vampiric Bloods as possible.
Yeah.
And you can just do that with Airlock Breach, right? Like, a lot of the people playing Blood Decay in the Brawl have a bunch of discovers. I don't know if necessarily specifically to hit Airlock Breach, but certainly it's a thing that they pick a lot.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you? Yeah, it's a powerful card. I understand we haven't had as much sort of Blood Decay type stuff as of late. And something like Warrior kind of, at least in the new set, was looking away from that a little bit with the new cards that they got. So instead, Death Knight's kind of going in that direction. But I am going to be so annoyed by this card. I'm just... And my husband has been sending me screenshots of, like, things, you know, big taunts and big clears.
See, wait until after the wedding for this.
So I'm worried about that making certain strategies just really hard to get under. Hopefully there'll be other things that are easier to get under. But and the other thing about Blood Death Knights that I'm going to be relearning is how to know when to concede and not play too long into them. You know, look at your deck tracker, if you have a deck tracker, and say, is there any top deck in the next 2 turns that wins me this game? And if there is not, quit. But for those of you who enjoy it, have fun with this card. It's a good card. It might get nerfed. We'll see. So if you have extra copies, you might want to hold on to them. All right. For card you want to be good but isn't, I put Exarch Akama, which is the warrior Draenei, legendary Draenei that after it attacks, everything else gets to attack again. It might just be that we haven't quite figured out how to build this yet, and I was very high on it after theory crafting. But as I think I was saying earlier, taunts and go wide is really tough, and at least as we have the builds right now, it's a lot easier to go tall than wide, but Akama kind of wants you to go wide, and so...
And he wants you to stick a board.
He wants you to stick a wide board, and that just... I don't know how you build this deck to do that.
So I think the answer is... not Draenei, but we still have menagerie cards in Warrior. So you could and a fancy new tribal tag. So you could build a menagerie warrior deck where you've got the I forget what they're called, but those rushers, they get buffed for every
Trial by Fire?
No, Power Slider. It's like a 2/1, but it has +1/+1 for every minion type you've played.
Because Trial by Fire might not be bad there either. If you get it, you would have to get a Akama to stick, right? But
no, I mean, I'm just thinking like you make a menagerie deck and you run some of the things that we mentioned, the enablers, right? Because it's the Draenei thing is just your next Draenei. So if you aren't running very many of them, and Akama is just your next Draenei, that's way, and you could still run the rush thing. And besides that, you're just a menagerie deck. Again, just try to stick a board, and you use it as a form of bloodlust, right? Where you just basically give everything Wind Fury if they have, a creature in play. So that would be my best guess for a way of getting use out of Akama. But I agree, it doesn't really go in the Draenei deck.
Yeah, we got a new demon in Warrior that does AoE if we're seeing a lot of like little token decks type of stuff. So yeah, that. Okay, I am higher on this card because I like Menagerie Warrior. So I'll be trying to figure that out. But in the Draenei package, it seemed like it felt like it didn't kind of fit with the cards that theoretically it seems like he should be going with.
Yeah. It just feels like you don't need him. It's not even that it doesn't fit. It's just like you don't actually need him to do the Draenei thing with the rest of them.
He doesn't solve the problems that you have with that deck.
Yeah.
Like, it does have problems, but Akama's not solving the problems it has. It's what it felt like. So, but a smaller package of Draenei could totally work. We'll have to see. But Edel, what did you pick as card you want to be good but isn't?
So, despite having taken a game off you two during the theory crafting, Deirdre, Rebel Captain, and kind of crewmates in general, I like the concept. It is really cool. I feel like there should be a way, but it just seems like particularly draw hungry. Like, actually, Deirdre in particular is draw hungry because she shuffles 8 into your deck and then draws 1 of them on the death rattle. And you don't really want to top deck them, right? Like, it's great when they get added to your hand and then you can do this kind of puzzling out how to make things work in your hand. But shuffling 8 things into your deck and then like top decking them in like you sort of need a lot of the rest of your stuff to be card draw. And
you just draw a bunch of them before like they're actually good. Because like if you're just top decking one of them, like who cares? It's a 4-mana 4/4. It doesn't matter. You need to be getting like 3 or 4 of them out at a time in order for it to be good.
And it's cool to have this possibility of like I do a thing and it's a board in a box every time and they have these bonus effects. But yeah, it just requires like the whole rest of the deck to be draw for that to work. If you're gonna
Demon Hunter,
I guess.
Even so, and then you want something that's gonna. I wonder if they did kind of mean the starships to go together with it, because then that gives you a little bit of burst on your board. I certainly did see like if the starship pieces work really well with each other, seeing that going on. And I don't know if it's an upgrade for Pirate DH, but when they stick like the 2/3 that buffs, and then they get the Wind Fury Rush, and then it's like a 4/4 at the end of the turn, or it's a 3/4, and then if you still don't clear it, it's a 4/4 that has Wind Fury, and then if you still don't clear it, we had one game where we couldn't clear it, if you can't tell. So I don't know if you're supposed to play that with the crew, but then you have a lot of slots taken up that aren't draw. So I don't know.
Yeah, it just sort of was a weird, tricky thing to make work in Demon Hunter. And I feel like even if the other crewmate stuff ends up getting run, I don't know if Deirdre does, which is weird because it's like the hallmark legendary for them. But shuffling these 8 things into your deck that you want to draw but kind of don't want to top deck is just awkward.
Right, I guess in the way of your draw.
Maybe if we still had like Finley, so you could shuffle them all into your deck and just get them all in your hand all at once, right? Maybe that might be a little bit better. But even then, that's like, it still doesn't seem great.
Yeah.
Still need a lot of card draw.
Yeah.
All right, well, Wicked, what did you pick as card you want to be good but isn't?
All right, you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation because I refuse to care how to say the name of this card because I'm never going to play it. So is it Kyure? Is that what it's supposed to be?
I think it's like
know.
Quaer or Quaver.
So Cure the Light Beyond.
Cure the Light Beyond. I paid attention to the rest of that pronunciation guide video, and then that part just totally went past my brain. Like
it doesn't matter how you say it because the card sucks. So it's this is the 3/3 priest legendary with spellburst, summon a random 3-cost minion. Holy spells don't remove the spellburst. It's not good. Like we tried it. We tried it in theory crafting. I didn't open it, thankfully. If I did open it, I probably would have tried to given up a brawl for science. Yeah.
It was one of my first 2. Maybe I'll try it this weekend just to see.
Don't waste tavern tickets on it. It's not worth it. But it's like you're getting maybe a couple of minions off of this. If you're playing it late, you really don't want just like a bunch of 3-drops. You want stuff that's better than that if you have enough mana to use this. And if you don't have the mana to use this, then you're getting like 1 or 2, or like I said last week, you want to use a funnel cake to get the mana, but then funnel cake nukes the spell burst because it's not a holy spell. So then you're just sitting there looking at your mana that you can't spell burst with anymore. And it's just like, even if you get it to work, it's underwhelming, right? Like you would need to get it to go off really early. And then like maybe if you had like a bunch of the bottles from the like the spell that heals you or whatever, like maybe you could get something that happened like 4 or 5, but then you're still just like, you just have a couple of random 3-drops. And then like, was that worth it? Probably not. You could have just played Gorgonzormud if you wanted a couple of 3-drops.
I think there's a couple like very specific situations where it works. Like if you happen to have it like next to the orbital, that's a great turn 3. Like that is a great turn 3. You play that, you give it +2/+1 Divine Shield, and you get another 3-drop. Nice tempo. But like how often is that going to happen? Especially that they're like happen to be adjacent. If it's a more likely scenario is it's later game, you have that light speed repeatable spell. But it costs 2, so you have to have like maybe you also have an orbital, but again you'd have to be next to it. It costs 2. You can then give every 3-drop. It's like pay 2 mana to get a 3-drop and give the previous one rush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is not terrible if you combine it in just that way. But I think part of what like makes Rayla stronger, even though she costs 1 more mana, besides the Divine Shields, is that the mage spells are cheaper.
Yeah. Plus also Divine Shield.
And it's any spell.
It's any spell. It's whatever, as long as she sticks on the board, it's not a spell burst that gets consumed. And the Divine Shield is not nothing. That is an active upgrade on those cards. And it's so the other, I mean, what's ironic is that the Stars Align isn't even a holy spell, because that's what you need for this to work, is for the stars to align. But the Stars Align is an arcane spell, so it kills the spell burst. It's just like, the payoff is not worth the amount of work that you need to do to set your deck up to take advantage of this, unless there's a deck that very specifically has a lot of very cheap holy spells. Then I could see it. But like you need like drinks, right? And the drinks aren't holy.
The main thing about it, I think, is that the holy spells we want to run cost 2 mana. There are 1 mana holy spells like Smite and Flash Heal, but the deck with Flash Heal in it. So I'm actually like, in terms of under overrated, I think Cure has been overrated by some people. Not you, Wicked.
No.
But I think, you know, it might be a little bit more playable than we think, but I don't think it's going to be great. Whereas I think Anchorite, the Overheal one, I'm high on. There's an Overheal deck. That's like an ambient light spawn deck. And even just like I was playing Vicious Syndicate's like 1-drop priest, but I subbed in the Overzealous Healer. The Overzealous Healer does have a couple of frustrating anti-synergies. Like if you happen to buff it with like a bird watching, or you buff it with the, like you can't put the orbital thing on it because it'll buff it and then trigger the spell burst and then get rid of the buff. But it's still a 1 mana 3/3. That's pretty good. And I think there's an aggro Overheal. Also, there's no way that like if they continue to support Overheal that Anchorite isn't good eventually. Yeah. Even though, unfortunately, you know, Overheal Priest as we knew it with Hedonus and Hollers and just very much destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, like every time that I start coming up with a scenario where this card's going to work, right? It's like, well, okay, so if you play a Drink Server and then you roll the 1 in 5 to get a Divine Brew, and then the Divine Brew is a 1-cost repeatable holy spell, or if you like. You play or you play the neutral forge who gives you a random holy spell and you get like a life-saving aura. But it's like you have to high roll so hard, and then your reward is you got a couple of 3-drops. And it's like there's easier ways to just get random 3-drops. So anyway, I hate this card.
I don't think Kira and Kara are meant to be like build your whole deck and strategy around this cards. I think they're meant to be, I maybe include several of this kind of spell. In Kara's case, Abduction Ray is like one repeatable thing. I think they're the reason there is a 2-cost repeatable of their appropriate type in each of these classes, right? So that
but maybe we're not thinking about maybe what your plan for Cure is just I play this and I wanted to play a Synchronize on something else anyway, and now I gotta, because I wanted to play, like, if I want to play a holy spell anyway, I get an extra 3-drop for it. I get a 3/3 and another 3-drop for 3 mana because I wanted to play a holy spell anyway. Like, maybe that's how we have to I don't know if that's good enough to take a card slot.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it is still more powerful than your average card. It is not a, like, totally build your strategy around kind of legendary. I don't think you should think about it in that way. They're like extra value if you do the supported thing. They remind me a lot of Fiola Lightbane and Aedis Darkbane from the Grand Tournament.
That is not a comparison that they're going to take in a positive light, I'll tell you, because those cards were also awful.
I know. I will say we were in a different time in terms of spell power things, but so Fiola Lightbane was a 3-mana 3/4. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield, and Aedis Darkbane, 3-mana 3/4. Whenever you target this with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Of the two, Aedis saw more uses because you can only get the Divine Shield once and have it be relevant, right? On the other one. But, depending on the class, that whenever you target this text, like, not everything has buffs, right? These is kind of a similar sort of issue of it has to be of a particular spell school. Now, you do still get the one-off if it's not the spell school, right?
You get one, yeah.
That's true.
So you can, like, play your ones of the right spell school and then be like, and we'll end on, coin something else out or whatever. But, yeah, I think it's the kind of thing where it's like, maybe it makes a card slot because it's better than your average thing to include.
Wow.
But yeah, people will need to just sort of take the value that they can get out of them.
Yeah, take a different.
Yeah. I mean, given the average card quality of what Priest has got, that may be an accurate statement, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't need to, we don't need to go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on a different note, a thing that you think is underrated, Wicked.
Yeah, so I really like the Warlock Starship pieces. I talked about it a little bit at the top of the show, but like those two together really work very well, especially when you have like the Arcanite Defense Crystal that gives you the 6 armor. Because the Heart of the Legion, which is the 2-drop, gives you lifesteal. It's just a 3/2 lifesteal. That's all, which is actually fine on its own, right? Just having a 3/2 lifesteal for 2 is not bad. It's something that I just, you just play out and you feel fine with it. Right. So, and then the other one, which is also not terrible on its own, but you don't really care about the ability until you actually have it on the starship, is Fellfire Thrusters, which is a 3-mana 2/3 with Spell Burst. Deal this minion's attack damage to 2 random enemy minions. So each of those by itself, like sometimes you'll do that, like just doing 2 pirates is not terrible in the early game. Like I was running Gul'dan's Gift because I didn't pull black holes. And then I realized that that's actually just better because I'm siphoning and souling more often than I'm twisting nethering anyway. And also sometimes I would just rip the gift to be able to pull the spell burst, and that was fine. But when you put those two things together, especially when you have multiple of them, because again, like the Death Rattle, if you have multiple Fellfire Thrusters, both of them fire. So then all of a sudden you're dealing 8, 10, 12 damage to four things. And by the way, healing up anything that doesn't hit a Divine Shield. So you do have to make sure that you've played a lifesteal piece before you do that. I have made that mistake. Like, why is my health still at 12? Oh, right. I haven't drawn a Heart of the Legion yet. But like very often, if I got to like 9 mana, right, which meant that I've had enough time to play a couple of starship pieces, and that wasn't really like the crux of the deck. It was mostly around like the demons, but also just like, okay, well, these things are here too because I needed to do something to make up for the demon spells that got buffed, but also are old, so they weren't in the brawl. But these are just fine, and I think that when we start figuring out how to use them in like a slower deck, like if we do actually do Wheel Warlock, which feels reasonable given Kill Jaden. I mean, that was the whole reason I was doing it, because Kill Jaden makes it so your deck never goes away. So you can just wheel whenever, and then you're putting your opponent on a clock with no downside as far as fatigue is concerned. Like being able to heal up that much. And then, by the way, have a giant taunt that has lifesteal and gains you more armor when it dies is really, really strong and swung games a lot harder than I expected them to.
Yeah. That is another thing I'm not going to enjoy facing as aggro, although I think it's something that I have doesn't necessarily come down on 6 like Airlock Breach.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer for it to come down, but because like you need to pay the 5 and then you need to have a spell to go with it, and not all your spells cost 1 in that deck. So,
well, what is the card that you think is underrated, Edel?
So, and I guess I might be wrong about sort of the pulse on this, but I feel like there's way more excitement and hype over asteroids, which I agree with. I find them more fun and interesting. But what I started to see a bit during the theory crafting that scared me more was Nebula. And we talked about the interaction where if you've got the Parrot Sanctuary up and Murmur out, then you can do this crazy thing where you Parrot Sanctuary and play this battle cry that swaps the cost of a spell in your hand with its cost. It costs 0, so it makes the Nebula free. You play that. If you really need to, you can Ceaseless Expanse and then play the free Nebula, and you're off to the races. And you can triangulate for more Nebulas, and just, it's crazy. And that was scary the times that I faced it, because giving evasive and taunt to something like the space rock.
splitting space rock. Yeah.
Yeah. The 8/8 that makes 4/4s, that make 2/2s, that make 1/1s. Like, that thing is insane, and I don't want to attack into it. And usually, it's paired then with like a rag or something else.
I've only ever seen rag in the splitting space rock. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's just like you're just, because I mean there's only one 8-drop in Shaman, which is Alakir, which is also not bad to get with elusive, by the way.
Sure.
But there are 7, 14, 16 neutrals, and most of them are just like generic 8/8s, which is, by the way, also fine.
Right.
Just having an 8/8 with elusive is like your average result from that. And taunt.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like, there's a bunch of the giants, like Red Giant, Storm Giant, Azurite Giant. Concert Promo Drake is effectively a giant at that point. Like
Thunderbringer.
Yeah, Thunderbringers, if you're built for it. Yeah, like even like a Mishmash Mosher could be fine. Oligarn could be fine in the right scenario, but like there aren't many low rolls, and you're probably going to get at minimum an 8/8 with elusive and taunt, which is nothing.
Yeah, the Kolagarns are hugely obnoxious.
Yeah.
Right, giving that elusive. So, or evasive, elusive. I forget which one is the actual keyword.
Elusive.
Yeah. So that just has me a little spooked because of how quickly it can happen with the Murmur stuff going on. Like, I was not anticipating getting the Nebula played that turn alongside a few other things, and because of the way Murmur interacts with the Sanctuary, it was just like a lot on turn 6.
Yeah, and it's going to be even more when Rogue starts playing them.
I also picked underrated, and for me that was random fire spells, aka Blasteroid, and even Supernova to a lesser extent. So I think if you think about Saroon Mage as current Elemental Mage, where we also added Saroon, then you're not sure you want to play Blasteroid, right? Because you're like, well, it shuffles things in that aren't elementals. I don't know exactly what they're going to be, but the quality of fire spells is quite high. And if you're thinking about this more in terms of we run a bunch of elementals, but we're a burn deck, then like, heck, this is going to be, this more than makes up for the damage that you're potentially missing out on Lamplighters. There's just so much more reach on this than you get from typical Elemental Mage. Watching theory crafting, but also like, even with the limited pool, I was watching Hat play this on stream yesterday. And he got some great stuff off of Blasteroid and off of Supernova. If you're in a late game, they're gaining tons of armor and tons of health from all their starships. What gives you a chance? Blasteroid, and Supernova usually probably off the Blasteroid. I don't know if we run it. I don't think we hard run it, unless maybe we're like a big spell mage, but that is issues for a big spell mage. But if you get it off the Blasteroid, it's 6 mana, I believe. Yeah. And everything it gives you is 1 mana. If you got to that point, you probably can afford to play 6 mana for this, and then a lot of the fire spells are pretty expensive. You got like a 1 mana Fireball, a 1 mana Firelance Portal. you can potentially clear the board. Like you get several of them, so you probably hit something that you want.
Yeah.
And so I was impressed that it was stronger than I thought when I was building this deck at first too. I was like, do we even want a Blastoid? I'm only putting this in because I need 10 cards for theory crafting restrictions. And then I'm like, oh, actually, I think we do just want this because we're not the same kind of deck that we were before.
Well, and it lets you have a higher density of elementals for the purpose of minions to gain fire spell damage, while still knowing that you will have some kind of damage dealing stuff in there, unless you get insanely unlucky to finish them off with. Because at least in my list baseline, the only things that could go face were the 2 solar flares, the 2 deal 4s that if you played an elemental last turn you can choose the target, and then 2 flame geysers, which not a ton of burn for a deck that wants to burn out their opponent.
But when they all deal 9, then it's not that bad.
Or you get more, especially when you're doing this without Surger, but even when you're doing this with Surger, right?
Yeah. And I was working on it. I still want to try and make this work. Touring into Rogue, not for big spell stuff, but for Arcwing pilot things, because you can play some coins to get that out earlier, and then play some more coins to start triggering the spell burst to get a full board of Arcwing pilots, which do a bunch of damage, but usually don't kill them outright. And so what's a great way to follow that up is, if you already have to run Skyla, why not run some Supernovas to swap a coin with the Supernovas? You have that to try and find your burn to finish them off in the late game.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been how Hat was running Supernova, actually. That I was watching, because I know I was watching him do an Arcwing pilot deck, which is how, because I hadn't figured out how to listen, it was really simple, but I hadn't figured out how to actually listen to the stream during theory crafting, so I didn't hear any of the voice lines when we did theory crafting, so I didn't know that Arcwing pilot says pew 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 when you attack with her, which is amazing. All right, well, for cards that you don't understand, I picked Eldritch Being. That's the 1-drop epic in Demon Hunter that shuffles your hand. Like, on the one hand, I sort of get what this is theoretically doing, and that, like, if you're playing the crewmates, then you can get them close to each other. But, like, so let's say that your hand has, like, 2 regular cards in it besides Eldritch Being and a bunch of crewmates. And then you shuffle your hand. Just, like, probability-wise, you're not that likely to get both of those non-crewmate things on the ends. Like, you're not that much likelier to get a better situation than you already had.
I don't know that this is a crewmate card, though. The way that I saw this card was like, if you're playing any sort of an outcast deck and then you've got an 8-drop stuck on the left side of your hand, then that gets it out of there. That's really the use case that I saw for that. Because like, if like, I'm thinking back to like when we were playing the combo lifesteal Death Knight, and you get stuck with like a Jace on the left side of your hand, and that was never going anywhere, and then you couldn't play any of the outcast cards, or like even earlier than that when you had like you desperately wanted to play a Skull of Gul'dan, but there was some like 8-drop or 9-drop stuck on the side of your hand that you couldn't get rid of. Then at least it gets it out of there, and that's when the probability starts to work in your favor, because you're not trying to get something to a specific place, you're trying to get something away from a specific place, and then the odds are much better in your favor that it's going to get out of that one specific position where it's ruining your life.
Okay.
I mean, I do think they thought of it because of the hand stuff they have in this, right? The crewmates and the legendary demon thing where you put the stars in. But I agree, it's sort of something that can be useful in general for Outcast when you end up in those awkward situations.
It also, I suppose, I mean, for the legendary with the 2 stars, if they're on the far ends of your hand, you're almost guaranteed to get them closer if you shuffle your hand. And
there's always kind of, it messes up deck trackers, like it messes up if somebody's watching your hand. Especially if you were like in the old days, if you were in a tournament, you had to track it with pen and paper, right? And like, all of a sudden everything's everywhere. Like you wouldn't necessarily, sometimes those little things matter. I don't think as much anymore, but
run that like 42 priest just to like mess with your opponent. Just like, now you're gonna have to play around this for the game. There was, in the latest Trollden video, there was a game where Clark got 42 to like 2, maybe 3 times in the same game.
Yeah, but he was playing Quasar Rogue, so he deserved it.
But he was just like talking, yeah, we've got him, and then after it happened, it's like, all right, we're not letting that happen again. And then they just like Nightshade T'd their way down and then did it again. Anyway, all right. Edel, what is the card that you don't understand? I don't think you're alone in this one.
So, Dwarf Planet, actually kind of similar vibes to the one I picked last time, but yeah, it's a 10 mana warrior spell. Pretty cool signature art and stuff. You summon a full board of 2-drops that attack immediately. And if you think that sounds underwhelming for 10 mana, you are correct. I think it might have a chance at like current tsunami cost, right? 3/6 water elementals, 7 2-drops that are random, probably comparable. I guess it's a bit more damage. I don't know if it's 2 mana more damage.
I mean, it's 14 mana's worth of stuff for 10 mana, so you're already, I mean, if you're extreme couponing, then you're already ahead. But
like, the only circumstance where it's okay is if they don't have a board. Because then it all goes face and you've summoned a board. But as soon as there's anything in play, it's like, you don't know what you're summoning, so you don't know how much power is going to hit these things, and if all your stuff is just going to die going into their stuff. Like, at least with the water elementals, they freeze, and they're 3/6s, so they could survive the affair. 2-drops probably are going to die if they don't have Divine Shield.
Yeah, especially if one of them's a Doomsayer.
Yeah.
We know that happens.
Yeah.
Every instance I've seen it, either from Trollden or someone actually running it in the brawl, it's just been like, well, I didn't expect that, but also it was not very effective.
There was a good clip also at the end of the same Trollden video where Old Guardian got it off during theory crafting. And he's like, we did the thing! And then it's very underwhelming. It doesn't even clear the opponent's board.
Yeah.
Or kill them. And he goes, yep, that was even more underwhelming than I expected.
Yeah. I forgot this when I was talking about the Warlock deck during Life and Ladder, but there was a game I played against a no minion mage where they played the fill your board with Naga spell that they must have generated off of something. And they generated not 1, but 2 adaptive amalgams that turned off all of their no minion cards.
Oh, that's
hilarious.
I
won that one. It took a while, but I won that one because they played that card. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that you necessarily are going to have those kinds of, I mean, obviously Doomsayer, but like if they've already attacked, that's probably not really that much of a loss, honestly. But yeah, I don't know why you want to do that. I mean, unless the answer is you don't want to do it, Yogg does, which fair, but
Yeah. Well, all right. We've talked about this some over the past couple of weeks, but what is the card that you don't understand, Wicked?
So I understand what it is. I don't understand why we're doing it, which is Ascara. So you can tell where my head's at because both the priest legendaries are on my list and not in the categories that I want them to be in. But so Ascara is a 4/5 Draenei that says battle cry the next Draenei you play summons a copy of itself. And I understand exactly what it does. It's very clear what it does. I don't understand why we want to do it because there's no clear direction for Draenei to go in this set for priest, where you don't have crewmates, you don't have minions that get bigger and attack the opponent immediately. You don't have Librams, which are what you get in Paladin, right? Like you don't really have a clear reason to want to be playing Draenei other than like the 6 cost lifesteal one, or just getting more Velens, which is just getting more Velens for the sake of getting more Velens, which I mean, I guess is a thing, but it's also like there's no there's no clear logical end state for wanting to have more Draenei in Priest. So I don't, and maybe that's something that somebody that's smarter than me will figure out, or something that's going to happen in the mini set. So this could be one of those where I'm eating my words and saying, I don't understand why this is. And then somebody figures it out and breaks it. But I just don't get it. And it's like, I could see it in a lot of the other classes that have Draenei, and I don't see it in Priest.
Wicked, I have figured it out.
Yeah. Oh no.
Galactic Crusader is a neutral. 7 mana, 3/9 Draenei. Taunt, Death Rattle, get 2 random holy spells. They cost 3 less. You get 2 of those. They die, you play Cure, and you are off to the races.
Oh god.
Solved them both in one.
I mean, I could see a world where you run a Skara and 2 of those and 2 of the, 4/8 Divine Shield Taunt, Lifesteal or something like that.
Yeah, Shield of Askara.
I mean, that's the obvious thing, but then it's like, okay.
Right. So you're not playing Draenei, you're playing Askara value stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where she just buffs up one of your defensive taunts. I also have seen, and I don't know how great this is, how often it ends up this way, but the neutral where you get temporary Draenei, they can be any class. So
our best way to make this work is by hoping that we get some of the good Draenei that other classes got.
Yeah, like
fantastic.
The Libram one. But in general, like Priest often is value pile, and so the way their Draenei thing is value pile. It is play Velen over and over, and you have the thing that gives you temporary Draenei in your hand, so you don't run out of stuff. Velen dies, you've probably synchronized it. You get these things to your hand, you play them because of Askara. The first one you play gets a copy summoned of it. So yeah, that's my best guess. Is like
sure.
The Priest Draenei thing is value pile.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like this is yet another one of these Priest packages where the main set is incomplete, and sometimes we get another card in the mini set and sometimes we don't. Like how I hope Sprung Eternal for way longer than it ought to have with Thief Priest. And then what we got was like a dragon that gave us 2 cards from the opponent's deck. That wasn't nearly enough, but whatever. It's
I think what we need is a big win condition, because I think
that would be nice.
Doesn't, even if it's not a Draenei, because there are good value and survivability Draenei for her now.
Yeah. It's
just how are we winning the game?
Yeah, a win con would be nice. Those are, I hear other classes enjoy those a lot, but
We have Contact asking in the chat, maybe you can use it with Adaptive Amalgam, just kind of throwing that out there.
I don't think you want to just be drawing an Adaptive Amalgam. I guess maybe in that point in the game, maybe you do. But,
suddenly, at first I was like, I don't know, but we do have a lot more buff spells, so I was thinking I should at least think about, like, in a 1-drop Priest with Orbital Halo and Light Speed, maybe I'm just running that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Right. Because then you're not actually just drawing 1/2s. But at any rate, what I forgot to do while we were going through is discuss what we picked last time, so I'm going to do that really fast now. So on the mini sets, the cards that we couldn't wait to play more with, I picked Carnivorous Cubicle, which I never played with that much, but I think it in Hunter especially, maybe also Death Knight, I don't know, we're likely to be seeing more of it. Edel picked Incendious, which I know at least I am going to be playing more with by now.
Mm-hmm.
And Wicked picked Cash Cow, which I think is a card. If we're seeing slower Hunter because of the new cards, then we might see Cash Cow with it. In terms of card we're scared of, we all picked Portalmancer Skyla last time. I think that was
pretty clear.
That was the center square on the bingo card, is what that was.
Yes. For card you want to be good but isn't, I had picked Job Shadower. If you forgot what that is, it's the Pain Priest. If you damaged yourself, summon a copy of this. If you damage yourself this turn, Battlecry, like, summon a copy of this. I did play like the aggro Pain Priest from VS, made a couple changes to it, but neither Zacho nor I put Job Shadower into it. Edel, you picked Soul Searching, which is the Death Knight, like...
double Unholy.
Discover a card in your deck if you pay 5 corpses to get a copy of it.
Which is good, except it's double Unholy.
Yeah.
And Wicked, you picked Eternal Layover, and I can't even remember what that one is.
That's the one that gives all minions Reborn and then kills them.
Aha. Yep.
Yeah. And the fact that you've never seen it tells you everything you need to know.
Speaking of Envoy of Prosperity, overrated. That was your pick.
Sure was.
Edel, you picked Spirit Peddler as underrated. And I picked Busybot as underrated, which it doesn't really have a deck to go in, but
Yeah.
I don't know that it's
John Bray briefly had, a Spirit Peddler deck. But yeah.
Yeah, it's hard with mini sets too. All right, and for cards that you don't understand, I picked Fine Print, which I also can't remember what that card does.
Well, that is the 4-cost Warlock clear, does 4 damage to things, and you take the excess.
Yes, that has made some good clips. Yeah. Not usually in the favor of the person doing it. Edel, you picked Huddle Up, which was that summon a bunch of Naga spell that we mentioned. And Wicked, you picked Trustfall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which you also have not seen on purpose ever. It's
pretty terrible.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it.
So, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/Concede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.concede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.concede.com. And write into our email at concede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.concede.com. Coin Concedes.
I will coin concede to Dane Harth, who was apparently enjoyed the game where he got 150 armor against us as a rogue so much that he put it in one of his videos. So if you want to see the other half of that game where we ran into a Quasar and then the Quasar ran into us, you could go watch that on his channel and see how he got 150 armor and actually see which way the truck was coming from.
That is why we don't concede in the theory crafting.
Yes.
All right. Well, I will coin concede to our top 8 in the listener series, and I am sorry that we haven't been talking through it in the same way. But I know I said I promise we'll cover tournaments this week, and then that didn't happen. So I promise we'll cover tournaments next week. But we do have a top 8. It is Logar, Glacier, Scoobd, Dr. BOMD, Rapid, JT Snow, Torby Flenderson, and Minmon. So congratulations to all of you for reaching the top 8. And happy Halloween to everyone in a place that celebrates it. As we record, it is Halloween today.
Also, happy Diwali.
Yes.
And I'm going to coin concede to Hat, who I caught some of the stream last night. Normally, he does stream on launch day, but doesn't want to do that this time because it coincides with election day, and also, it's a big work day for him being community manager. Yeah, so it kind of worked out with the prerelease brawl that he could do that stream and pack opening and everything earlier. And it was really, really nice to get to see him streaming again and just having a good time trying stuff out.
So that is going to do it for us for this week. So we will see you on the other side of the expansion. So until next time, keep calm and prepare for launch. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.